What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a video where we will discuss Mo Salah's contract situation, and we have a great article written by Gab Marcotti where he explains why Liverpool could be hesitant in offering Mo Salah a new contract, and we have an interesting theory about Mo Salah's international tournaments coming up. He has an Africa Cup of Nations coming up next season in the middle of the season where he potentially Salah could miss as many as 10 games if Egypt go all the way, and then he has a World Cup in the summer, then he has an Africa Cup of Nations in 2027 as well. So he has an Africa Cup of Nations in 2026 January, then a World Cup in the summer if Egypt qualify for that, then he has another Africa Cup of Nations in the January of 2027. So Salah would be absolutely exhausted in the second half of next season if he signs a new contract after missing 10 games for Liverpool. So does that come into the consideration for Liverpool in offering him a new contract worth 400, 450, maybe even 500,000 pounds per week? Liverpool are potentially hesitant in offering Mo Salah a new contract worth that much money when he will miss 10 games next season, plus he will be exhausted in the second half of the season. Then he will not get a proper summer break if Salah's Egypt qualifies for the World Cup, and Salah is desperate to win an Africa Cup of Nations title with Egypt. He haven't won an international tournament with Salah in the team, so he is desperate to do that before he retires. So let me know, what do you think Liverpool's thinking is behind the scenes? Ben Gab Marcotti said that the net spend in the Premier League, the world's richest league, went down by 40% and reached its lowest level of any summer which wasn't COVID since 2014. And of course you can't measure that properly in the January transfer window, because January transfer windows are very, up and down depending on the domino effect of one player going to another club and that setting off a chain reaction. And there are evident outliers like Man City, who could yet spend big because Man City have huge profits in the last few seasons. But finance blogger Swiss Rambo said that Man City could lose as much as 370 million pounds and still be within the PSR rules. And there is pretty great evidence supporting that maybe even Premier League clubs are not prepared to spend crazy money on transfers anymore or on wages. Adrien Rabiot was a free agent and he had plenty of big club experience playing for PSG and Juventus, and he didn't even move in the summer. He only moved in the middle of September to Marseille. He couldn't find a club. Osimhen, Napoli wanted more than 100 million euros for him, and then they dropped the asking price to 80 and then to 60 million, and then he ended up at Galatasaray on loan. And Joshua Kimmich, Alphonso Davies, they could be both free agents in the summer, and there are of course other clubs like Bayern Munich who allowed quite a few of their big players to run out their contracts, like Kimmich and Davies did at Bayern Munich. And Musiala is also in dangerous territory because it would have been unthinkable previously to allow someone like Jamal Musiala to have like 18 months left on his contract. For Liverpool, of course, the talks are ongoing, everyone is relaxed, but nobody can remember the last time during such a successful season that two massive, well-run, financially healthy clubs like Bayern Munich and Liverpool left it so late to extend the contracts of key players. And that is a very smart observation by Gab Marcotti, and everyone is keeping their cards close to their chest, but only you can surmise that the reason it is taking this long is that the extensions for these players, contract extensions, are far from straightforward. The players and their agents have a certain idea of what these players' services are worth, but the clubs are dealing with a new economic reality. And maybe Liverpool, even though they are increasing their revenues, they are thinking twice about giving players who are 32, 33 years old big new long contracts. According to Transfermarkt, there have been 16 transfers worth more than 100 million euros in history, but most of them have been bad transfers. And I already could mention a lot of transfers in the Premier League: Lukaku, Pogba, Mudryk, Jack Grealish, and the list is pretty much endless. The only big success is Virgil van Dijk, out of the Premier League's most expensive transfers. And this doesn't just affect the biggest clubs. Those teams that relied on player training as part of their business model, and you can see a lot of clubs mentioned here: Dortmund, Brentford, Brighton, Atalanta, Udinese, Monaco, Sevilla. They are finding it tougher as well. You are going to be more reluctant to spend 20 or 30 million euros on that promising young winger if you think that once he develops, you won't get much more than that back for him. Take Dortmund's Donjan Malen. Dortmund paid 30 million euros for him from PSV Eindhoven when he was just 22 years old. Of course, he didn't become a world-class player, but he did score 15 goals as a winger last year, and 3.5 years later, with prices inflated, he goes to Aston Villa for less than what Dortmund paid for him, just 25 million euros. Maybe this deflation is just a long overdue correction, one that was delayed somewhat by the wild Saudi Arabia spending 2 summers ago. Maybe clubs are realizing that revenue won't continue to increase the way it did. Maybe they understand that regulators, whether UEFA, the Premier League, La Liga, are serious about enforcing rules. Maybe they finally get the fact that what was once called the investment into the squad was actually some combination of, an ego trip, a Ponzi scheme. It actually gets really, really expensive for football clubs to maintain their expensive squads, and maybe they simply have come to terms with the fact that transfer fees and wages have reached such high levels that once revenue stops growing, and it will stop growing all the time, you can only justify them if there is a certain number of, irrational clubs out there to mop up your mistakes. That's why it was great for some Premier League clubs that Saudi Arabian clubs came along and spent huge amounts of money. I mean, Liverpool benefited from that because they sold Henderson and Fabinho for quite big money to Saudi Arabia, money that no other English or European club would have been willing to pay for Henderson or Fabinho. Maybe some clubs reached some level of sanity. Maybe this will become a real grown-up sustainable business one day, and that's what Gab Marcotte is saying. And another Liverpool fan is saying that maybe the Africa Cup of Nations and the World Cup is a serious consideration for Liverpool when it comes to offering Salah a new contract, because he could miss as many as 10 games next season due to the Africa Cup of Nations being from the 21st of December to the 18th of January, so almost a full month. And this could be a major issue in negotiating a new contract with Salah, because FSG is not going to pay 400 or 500,000 pounds per week, knowing fully that Salah will miss a key part of the next season and he will be exhausted in the second half of the season. So we can expect Salah's performances to maybe drop off after the Africa Cup of Nations, like it has happened previously. Maybe FSG are trying to convince Salah to quit international football. That's just speculation. I don't see that happening. It's a valid point, another Liverpool fan said, especially considering that he got injured at the last Africa Cup of Nations and missed almost 2 months of last season. At his age and never having won Africa Cup of Nations for Egypt, that Salah surely sees this as his final chance at achieving glory for his country. So he will not want to miss the 2026 or the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. It's absolutely insane that these tournaments come along almost every year. They want as much money as possible, and there is a lot of corruption in Africa as well. And it's true that some people still don't consider Salah the best African player of all time because he hasn't won the Africa Cup of Nations tournament. But hopefully with the emergence of Marmoush, Salah will have another very good attacking player in the Egypt squad, so they will have more chance to win the tournament. And I think it's certainly a consideration by FSG whether to give Salah a new 2 or 3 year contract and whether to offer him high wages, because 10 games is a lot, but Liverpool have, at the moment, the squad is well equipped to cope with Salah's absence. The problem is Liverpool are over-reliant on Salah's goals and assists. He scored 65 or 70% of Liverpool's goal contributions this season. And hopefully once Chiesa is fully fit and fully back, then hopefully he will be adequate cover if Salah gets a new contract to play in the place of Salah. But then, Chiesa would have to play almost all 10 games without any rotation option. And that's not ideal, of course. And also, next year, in 2026, it's not just an Africa Cup of Nations, it's a World Cup year as well. So he won't get the summer as well to recover from AFCON if Egypt qualify for the World Cup. And then there is another Africa Cup of Nations. So in the space of like 12-13 months, Salah will have 3 international tournaments to attend. In the next 2 years, if Liverpool offer him a new 2-year contract, in the next 2 years, Salah will have 3 international tournaments to attend. And I'm sure not a lot of you guys have known about this, so that's why I'm making this video, to shine a light on this fact. Maybe this is why Liverpool are hesitant in giving Salah a new contract, or maybe they want to give him a new contract with, certain clauses inserted, and also maybe a lower wage or a shorter contract, and maybe Salah is not accepting that. That's why he hasn't signed yet. And there was a report coming out of Egyptian outlet Masrawi claiming that Liverpool remain in conflict with Salah over the key terms in a potential agreement to sign a new contract, because Salah and his entourage is looking for a freer deal that doesn't compromise on salary. Liverpool want to renew for 1 year on the same terms or reduce his salary and agree to then instead not agree a 2 or 3 year deal. I mean, if Liverpool just want to sign Salah on a 1 year contract, then I don't see Salah accepting that. Liverpool at least need to offer him a 2 year contract, but yeah, maybe Liverpool are right not to increase Salah's wages too much. But I still think he deserves 400k weekly wages, because even if Salah goes to the Africa Cup of Nations and comes back a little bit tired, he's still the best attacker, the best goal scorer at Liverpool. So he deserves at least a 2-year contract. The outlet cites an update from Nicolas Shira claiming that Saudi club Al Hilal is preparing to submit a huge financial offer to convince Mo Salah to sign a contract as a free agent until 2028, which is the period that Salah asked Liverpool officials to sign. Yeah, so that would be a 3-year contract, and I don't think Liverpool are giving Salah a 3-year contract. Al Hilal's offer is not the only one on the table for Mo Salah and his agent Rami Abbas. International press reports indicated there is interest from PSG officials in contacting the club with the player during the upcoming summer transfer window. And Salah right now is the best attacking player in the world, but there has to be a compromise. So either Salah needs to lower his wage demands, or Salah needs to come to a compromise with Liverpool, like agree a 2-year contract with an option for the 3rd year if he triggers certain numbers, certain goals, assists, appearances, and then Liverpool can trigger his 3rd year contract by default, and they need to compromise on the salary. But when Liverpool are up against one of the richest countries in the world, Saudi Arabia can offer wages worth £1 million per week, twice what Liverpool are offering. It's hard for Liverpool to compete with that. And there is also a great explaining article why Liverpool may be unwilling to give Mo Salah a new deal. So, in the most simple form, the theoretical deal amounts, if Salah gets a 3-year deal worth £500,000 per week, it's £26 million per year, and over 3 years that's 78 million. So which player could Liverpool buy and recruit for a combined transfer fee and wage of 78 million pounds over 3 seasons that can match Salah's output? That's very, very hard, almost impossible. But also the big question is, will Salah's goal or assist rate in 2 or 3 seasons still be worth £500,000 per week? Because it doesn't matter what Salah produces right now. Liverpool want to value Salah for his future contributions. So if Salah can't sustain these numbers in 2 seasons, it's not worth offering him a 3-year contract. So that's Liverpool's thinking. Will Salah's goal and assist rate in 27-28 season still be worth £500,000 per week? Probably not. And if Liverpool commits to keeping him, will they have the resources to recruit Salah's replacement in 2 or 3 years' time? That's the problem, that even if you give Salah a 2-year contract, at the end of those 2 years, you still need to sign Salah's replacement. But if Salah can keep banging in the goals like this, and Liverpool can continue winning Premier League titles, Champions League, FA Cups, then the revenues will keep growing and Liverpool will have more money in the future to recruit, to buy Salah's replacement than they have right now. So that's the calculation that Richard Hughes and the club's sporting director and Michael Edwards, the CEO of football at FSG, are considering right now. And when Michael Edwards was the sporting director, they had the soft rule of not extending contracts players aged over 30 years old, preferring to allow players like Bobby Firmino to leave on a free transfer. We sold Mane for a little bit of profit to Bayern Munich. We sold Henderson and Fabinho at the perfect time. Right now, I can't imagine Salah leaving. I can't imagine Salah leaving at the peak of his career, Liverpool. So hopefully Liverpool can extend Salah's contract. Let me know what they think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a nice day. See you later. Good night.